Welcome back. This is week 10, part 2. As mentioned, we are talking about a variety of topics. First, differentiation practices, and then adolescent literacy, which should hopefully prepare you to work with your second student. We have two objectives for the week. First, to be able to justify your grouping strategies and next steps for instruction when given a class data set. And then second, to explain the needs of adolescent readers in regard to the key literacy areas as well as assessment, writing, and motivation. And that's going to come through in your article you're reading for the week. So first, let's talk about differentiation practices. Using data. This is definitely one of my favorite things to do. What you're looking at is a spreadsheet that I developed when I was a classroom teacher. As a school, we were required to give the DRA, which stands for the Developmental Reading Assessment, which is a form of an informal reading inventory. It looks like a lot like the QRI or any sort of leveled reading assessment. So I was required to give that, but being someone who loves to look at charts and spreadsheets and use Excel and grids, I came up with this format for reporting my class data. So over here you have the student name, the DRA level they were given, looking at miscues, percent accuracy, self-corrections made. If you wanted to get fancy, you could do the ratio there. Here I made any patterns and notes about decoding and word recognition. So this yellow is all about their decoding and word recognition, whereas the purple columns have to do with comprehension. So how they do with the preview, the retell, the reflection, the connections, and then patterns or notes. And this is a 1 through 4 score, where 4 is the highest. So if you look at the skipper, I gave Skipper a DRA level 6, which is a D. He had 2 miscues, 97% accuracy, 3 self-corrections. He's sounding out words but had some trouble with magic E words or A blank E vowel patterns, that kind of thing. Overall in comprehension did pretty good, didn't get any 4s, but needed some prompting with retell. And you will notice a lot of them actually needed some practice with retell. Looking at Ginger, she's a little higher. She was on an F, but she had a ton of miscues and no self-correction. So right away, I'm seeing that she's not really reading for meaning, and that's showing up here in the comprehension scores. If you're making this many miscues, chances are you're missing out on what you're reading and you're not self-correcting, you're not monitoring what you're reading. So she needs some work with monitoring, which is hopefully going to help those comprehension scores. So take a look at this data, and I want you to think about how would you group these students for guided groups? And then what about, say you were doing workstations or a workshop model? Think about that for a second. You may even want to pause for a minute so you have plenty of time to look at this and see what the data is telling you, what the story is here, before I move on and tell you what I took from this story. All right, so let's take a look at my ideas. Again, there isn't just one way to do this, but what is important is that you have a strong rationale for your grouping. So first of all, there's a standout, and that's Marcia. She's a level B. She's the only level B. This is beginning of first grade, so they should be a level D at the beginning of first grade. So she is significantly below the other students. So she would need some tier 3 intervention, some really intensive, she needs help. And I'm noticing she's not using picture clues to gain meaning to help her with word recognition and decoding. So that's where I'm going to start with her. Next at the DE level, so these kids are on grade level for beginning of first grade. I have Skipper, Gilligan, Professor. They all need help with long vowel spellings and with retell. Next are the level F students. Ginger, Marianne, and Bobby specifically are not using semantic cueing to self-correct or realize errors. So I pointed that out. Ginger has all of those errors, but no self-corrections. Whereas you have Cindy and Jan, they're also a level F, but what I need to work on with them is making less miscues. And all of these students need help with retell. You're seeing that as a pattern. Next, at level H, I would work with Mr. H and Greg. And actually, when you look at the data, Mr. H is a level F here, but look at how high the accuracy is, the low miscues, the self-corrections. So he definitely has a very solid foundation for decoding and word recognition, which is why I'm comfortable working with him at a higher reading level, but you don't want to go too high. But both of these students I'm going to work on with blending. So that's my rationale for how I'm grouping the students. Essentially, I am grouping them by reading level. You may not want to do that. Even within reading levels, you can find subgroups. So within my level F students or level F reading levels, there are some specific things I need to work on. An interesting note about the data chart I showed you, when I was a reading specialist doing RTI, every 6 weeks teachers needed to give an informal reading inventory and submit a chart like this to me for their class, which you definitely need to invest teachers in this practice. You don't want to mandate this so that they're doing it for compliance, but you want to teach them how to read and use this data in their classroom so they see the purpose behind it. But what I would then do would be to take their spreadsheet of data and meet with them one-on-one and say to them, so Ginger appears to be having a lot of miscues. What are you doing to help her read with more accuracy? And we could brainstorm that way, because Ginger is not a student I would see as the RTI specialist. I would probably only see Marcia from this class. And I still want the teacher to be doing interventions in the classroom with their students who need further support, so they're still making the growth. Then from month to month, or after each 6 week period, I would compare reading levels for the students to make sure that they are making progress, and if not, I can intervene with the teacher. So that is an idea if you're moving into a literacy specialist or RTI role, of how you can hold teachers accountable and help give them interventions to do on their end, depending on what tiers you are providing support for. All right, so let's say you want to give these students some meaningful workstation activities. Well, what could they do? Right away, you notice everyone needs help with retell, which is a very literal, basic level of comprehension. So if they can't do the retell, it's difficult to know how they will do for higher levels of comprehension. So I would have all of these students do some sort of graphic organizer to sequence events. And a way I could differentiate this would be to have them use a level text at their level, but still everyone is working on sequencing the events and doing an oral retell of what they read. For a word analysis activity, I might have Marcia use pictures in sentences or use pictures to sort. So I really want to work with her on attending to pictures. So I don't know if you've seen those books, but there will be a sentence and it'll say and it will have a picture of a house is big. So the student can read the house is big, and they have to get used to seeing the picture house. So I might do some work with her on that for her workstation. For some phonics activities, I had these great phonics windows that I don't think they make anymore, but you could probably make your own. But Carson DeLoza made them. So Ginger and Marcia would work on beginning sounds. Jan, Peter, Mr. H, Marianne, Professor, and Ginger would do final sounds. And then medial sounds would be Bobby, Gilligan, and Greg. Magic E, Skipper, Gilligan, Bobby. So you can see, even if you're not using these sounds windows that I speak of, you can see how certain students need to work on beginning sounds, other students need to work on final sounds, some need the middle sounds, some need the magic E or long vowel spelling patterns. All right, as far as intervention ideas go, I'm going to take a few minutes and take you to some of my favorite websites. The first is the Florida Center for Reading Research, which if you haven't been to, you definitely should visit. They recently redid it, so it's going to take me a second. All right, here under For Educators, you click there. Then you want student center activities. They even have principal walkthrough checklists, which is something I should be using as an administrator. Here, K1 center activities. All right. And if you go down here, you can see here you need some phonological awareness activities. Click here and up will open a 50-page PDF of everything you need to play some fun phonemic awareness phonics games. Warning, it will take you a few minutes to download, which is why, I will wait just a few more seconds to let you take a look at what this looks like. Great. So here we have a ton of pages. It includes, what is it, 88 pages? 88 pages. It includes the directions, the cards, all that you need for that. So definitely check that out. Interventioncentral.org is a great resource for if you have a student teacher assistance team, or if you have a child study team, or we call it intervention assistance team at my school, but up here you have academic interventions. Here you have behavior interventions. Disclaimer with this website is it's developed by Jim Wright, whose background is in school psychology and administration. So it's not developed by someone with a great reading background, so just know that. Carl's Corner is by Sherry Carl, who is a classroom teacher, reading specialist, not organized very well, but has a ton of activities on here to help you with many different things. Good one to check out. And then lastly, Internet for Classrooms is something I use to find meaningful internet games for students to use. So if you go to, you can go by, grade, or you can go by subject, and then you can click on there and it will take you to different links for different games. So for first grade language arts skills practice, here are, different resources for you to check out, all for technology. All right, so those are some great intervention ideas. Here are some ideas for low maintenance differentiation. What's more low maintenance than the buzz cut? I don't know, you tell me. Thinking about if you're doing a word sort, which is a great intervention activity, you can have some students just sort the pictures if they really need to attend to the sound, or you can have other students sort the words if they are able to read the words, or you can have students sort a combo of words and pictures. A lot of times at different stations and activities, I had color-coded bags, and if you were playing the sight word game, Bang, then I knew, I needed the red bag because those had the sight words that were appropriate for me. So that would be a way to do that. You can also have many activities at one station and then have student names next to the activity you would like them to practice. So maybe you have the same phonics game, but the kids who need help with long vowels are going to play the long vowel version of it, or however you want to organize it. Menus are great because they can help incorporate student choice. So you may have a writing station and you might have different options for them so they can pick what is appropriate for them. You can have the same station, maybe like a retail station, but give them a leveled reading book to use. You can have different levels of a text available, and I know on Reading A to Z, they've actually come out with different informational text passages for different levels, but it's all on the same topic, which is cool. And then you can provide templates and sentence starters, which I did for my reading response journals. Each week students would write a reading response letter to me about their book, and for certain students I had a template to use or sentence starters. All right, this should be hopefully some preparation for your assignment as a literacy specialist where you need to plan interventions to meet student needs. What is your plan going to be? And more importantly, what is the rationale that supports your plan? All right, I will stop there and mute you back for the next part of our lecture this week.